Tigers! Let's go, Tigers!
Is it a game this weekend?
You know who's coming
Get
out
this
in a half
win.
hour?
Ed Ogeron.
Coach O will be live with
the
us.
best coach in the country.
And we can tell you,
Monster himself.
well, officially as of last night, he is the coach of the number 2 team in America because the first college football playoff ranking of the season has Ohio State debuting at number 1. It's the first time a Big Ten team has topped the ranking. LSU, Alabama, and Penn State round out the top 4. So if the season ended right this minute, which of course it does not, those would be the 4 teams playing it off for the national championship. Now, those 4 teams will meet in short order, including, of course, the game this weekend. And what it all means is that Clemson is outside the top 4 despite having won 24 consecutive games. They've spent 24 straight weeks in the top 4, and they're the defending national champs. Their streak was the longest of its kind in the playoff era, which dates back to 2014. So you say to yourself, how can Clemson be out of this? Clearly, their strength of record is what keeps them out. Joey Galloway's with us here, and of course, Mr. Feinbaum. Joey, I'll start with you. Do you have an issue with the defending national champs not being in the top 4?
I don't have an issue. No, I would have them at number 1 personally, but I don't have an issue. We're in the middle of the season, and all these teams have to play one another. And if you're Clemson, I wouldn't have an issue either. I think they use it as motivation.
What do you think, Paul?
Dabo Swinney went out last night and got an RC Cola and a pizza and celebrated because he can finally be an underdog again. He didn't like being number 1. They didn't play very well, and now I think Clemson is the most dangerous team in the country.
Yeah, so they sit at number 5, and listen, they're going to, they win out, they get in. There are certain teams that control their own destiny, and then there are those that need help. And yesterday you told me, watch Georgia and Oregon. We want to try and bring you some information here that isn't quite so obvious. So you said watch where they put Georgia and Oregon. What was the significance of Georgia being ahead of Oregon?
Well, the committee is obviously valuing Georgia's win over Notre Dame and obviously the win over Florida. And Oregon sitting out there hoping against hope. They don't have anything left on the schedule that will help them until the Pac-12 championship game against Utah. That could be a very highly ranked game. The Pac-12 is not dead yet, but the Big Ten and the SEC were the beneficiaries last night.
Oregon is 7, Utah is 8. They could play each other in the Pac-12 championship game. In your opinion, Joey, do the 2 big teams in the Pac-12 control their own destiny, or do they need help?
Well, they're going to get help. The teams play. Ohio State, Penn State play. LSU, Alabama this weekend, they play. We have championship games. So there's going to be some movement ahead of them. I think if I'm the Pac-12, I'm very excited about 2 teams inside the top 10 because if they get to the championship game and somebody makes a statement, then they'll be in the conversation.
When I look down this sheet, and by the way, ESPN prints me out this sheet that has more information on it than any piece of paper I've ever been given in my life, and I love it. We're sitting there at number 12 with Baylor unbeaten and number 17 Minnesota unbeaten. Do those teams control their destiny?
No. Minnesota does. Minnesota's a team nobody has thought about this year. They have a big game this week against Penn State. Should PJ Fleck's team win out, they are going to the college football playoff. That's the good news, Greeny. The bad news is they're underdog in 3 of the 4. Conversely, Baylor is going to be a favorite in 3 of the 4. They'll have to beat Oklahoma in a couple of weeks. I don't know if that will be enough to get them in.
I agree completely on Minnesota because to get there, by definition, they'd have to beat the teams that are right now number 1 and number 4. Is there enough in the Big 12? In theory, could Baylor run the table, be an unbeaten Big 12 champion, and get left out of this dance?
They could absolutely get left out the way things set up. I think Baylor has come from too far back now. We've seen teams lose in these past few weeks here that we didn't expect to lose. So they're not out of it, but they're going to need some help, obviously.
We'll talk more about this as we go, but I just want to point out one thing quickly. The committee does something very smart or very devious, depending on how you look at it. They leave themselves room to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
By putting Alabama and Penn State where they did, they use the eye test. Then by putting Clemson where they did, they use the strength of record. So basically, they've sent a message. We'll do what we want to do, and that, I think, will be the message going the rest of the way through.
Do not trust this committee at any cost because they're playing games with the American public. They know how it's going to end up because they have all the chess pieces. And it's also worth remembering, Rob Mullins, the chairman of this committee, he's also the athletic director at Oregon. Now, he says he excuses himself or recuses himself. He's standing outside pulling strings, though.
All right, so listen, the best thing about this whole system, it gives us so much to talk about, and we will as we continue. But now to the NFL, where the Cowboys return to practice today on a short week after beating the Giants in the Monday Nighter in New York. And Dallas will face a very different test this weekend, hosting Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. That's the Sunday night game. and it's a very intriguing matchup, in particular of the quarterbacks. It's the 5th time Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott have faced each other as NFL starters, and Dak has been on the winning side of each of the previous 4. He's won the last 2 by an average of 19 points. So, as I bring my NFL guys into the conversation, Neek and RC, as you look at this matchup, you were making an interesting point this morning about how when we look at Dak and Cousins, and they're the high-profile guys, but they're not necessarily the most important guys on their own team.
Neither of these guys are the most important guys on their own team, not even their own offenses. This game is about Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. If you're coaching defense for any one of these teams, you want to say, make sure Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins are the guys that have to beat us. And when you're talking about Kirk Cousins having $84 million guaranteed, or Dak Prescott looking to be the highest paid quarterback in the league, you don't necessarily believe that that's how they should be viewed. But this is going to be about stopping the run and forcing these 2 quarterbacks to win the game.
Yeah, I understand why people could come to that conclusion and say that they're similar, but I think Dak is a cut above Kirk Cousins. Dak has performed in high-profile moments. That's the big criticism about Kirk Cousins. Dak performs and makes big plays in playoff games, in late-season games that mean something. And their offense has been great so far this season, not just because of Zeke. That's, depending on what measure, they're 1 or 3 in offensive efficiency throughout the league. Well, they're good, and Dak is good, and he's doing this even with players dropping passes, which we saw in the last.
No, they're absolutely dropping passes. But if you look at both of their seasons, and we break them down, for 3 games, they both might have been the best quarterback in the league. But then the inconsistencies, the turnovers, when Dak Prescott comes out and you're throwing a slant and you throw the ball right to Antoine Bethea, who's standing at the line of scrimmage, those are the plays that you can't have happen. Kirk Cousins entering 4 fourth quarters where you're trailing 11 times, you're 0-10-1. And so when you look at these 2 dudes, I just believe that if you were like, hey, Dallas, we'll give you Kirk Cousins, you'd be like, oh, nah, keep him. But I believe Minnesota would be the same way if you told them they could have Dak Prescott. And to me, that's a scary feeling for 2 teams who have championship aspirations.
That's where we disagree. I think you're right about for 3 games, depending on the stretch, both of them were the best in the league. But Dak didn't regress nearly as much as Kirk Cousins did. His numbers were still good. I think the issue with the Cowboys is their defense has been really bad, and they put Dak in terrible field position. During that 3-game stretch when we were all talking about Dak was inconsistent and they were bad, they were losing, they were near the top of the league, top 3 for drive yards gained. The problem was they were starting back on their own 10. So it's not all on Dak. Dak isn't Patrick Mahomes, but he's above Kirk Cousins.
You want to make a comparison? The easiest way to settle this argument, did Kirk Cousins lose to the Jets this year? I rest my case. Meanwhile, to the next quarterback in the conversation, the last time we saw Patrick Mahomes under center was October 17th. Remember that? It was a Thursday night. He dislocated that kneecap in a victory over the Broncos. He's missed the last 2 games for the Chiefs. His status for this weekend against the Titans is uncertain. That's one of several big NFL stories that I want to bring Jeremy Fowler, our NFL insider, in on. He's with us from Bristol. And let's start there. Jeremy, what are you hearing about the latest on Mahomes and his recovery?
Well, Greeny, I continue to hear chances are pretty good that Mahomes plays this week. Not a guarantee, but pretty good. One source classified it to me as 50-50, but it's trending upward. Now, it's known around the league, Andy Reid has that backup quarterback swag. He loves preparing backups. He's good at it, so if he has to roll with Matt Moore, he is cool. But this week, Week 10 was always a more realistic outlook for Mahomes than the last 2 weeks. They're playing an AFC opponent, so there are playoff implications. So overall, it's looking pretty good. The Chiefs slow played this. They're not dumb. They know they have the most important knee in the NFL.
Well, here's another knee. How about Jacoby Brissett? Where are we with him?
Well, Greeny, the Colts are absolutely thrilled that this guy even has a chance to play. MCL sprain, are you kidding me? They knew it could have been so much worse as he was laying there on the ground, but they're going to be extra cautious, so don't expect a whole lot of work Wednesday and Thursday. Friday is the big day here. They're going to see how much he can take. They really won't make a decision until then, and I'm told the Colts believe their roster and their ability to handle adversity is strong enough that if they have to play the Dolphins with Brian Hoyer, the Destroyer, they're ready to get after it.
Those would be the suddenly surging Dolphins, Jeremy. Let's show them respect. And finally, Kareem Hunt has served his 8-game suspension. He's scheduled to play for the Browns on Sunday. What are their plans for him?
Their plans are big. They like this guy as a focal point. They watched him in the offseason. He wowed them for months. They said this guy can be a catalyst for us. And look, he's number 4 in their depth chart right now at running back. Are you kidding me? This is a guy who led the league in rushing less than 2 years ago as a rookie, 1,300 plus yards in Kansas City. But here's the thing, at 2-6, with a team that's scrutinized Sunday to Monday, how much is it really going to matter? You talk to coaches, people around the league, they see a disjointed team without much of an identity that's sort of calling plays at random, hoping they don't get penalized. And so, the Browns simply hope that Hunt could come in and be a spark, help Odell Beckham, bring some balance to the offense, but he's going to play with Nick Chubb at running back, behind him, alongside him. They'll get creative with this guy, maybe not the first week, but over the next few.
All right, Jeremy, well done. Thank you so much. Good to see you. As always, let me bring it here. That's quite a sentence. Calling plays at random, just hoping they don't get penalized.
That's not real football.
That's setting your sights really low for a team that was thinking championship thoughts. And that's where I want to begin this conversation. I think all of us expected, oh my goodness, they're going to be playing half a season and then they're going to add Kareem Hunt. What does it actually mean for a team that is 2-6 and has started as badly as they have?
It don't mean nothing. Like the problem there isn't that they don't have enough playmakers. They have plenty of playmakers. The problem is they are a poorly coached team and they need an adult in the room. And the closest adult that they have in the room right now is Odell Beckham Jr. He's the guy that they should be following. He's the guy that they should be getting the ball to. He's the guy that should be the leader of this team right now because he's the guy who seems most mature in this situation. I know how crazy that sounds, but when I see him speak and when I hear Freddie Kitchens speak or I hear Mayfield speak, the guy who I want to follow is Odell Beckham.
No, absolutely. He's also playing that way. You look at the effort Odell Beckham Jr. plays with, the passion that he's playing with, how much it still matters to him to win football games. It's only been about that for Odell Beckham Jr. this year, but also this means nothing. Could you imagine thinking about this team preseason? All we said was after 8 weeks, they'll get Kareem Hunt and add him to what they'll be doing offensively. Well, they aren't doing anything. And it doesn't matter if you're calling plays at random, you could have Jim Brown back there and it's not going to help this team. They have to get better.
To be clear, you think they're done? For this season,
they are done.
Done.
They are done. And now, the schedule changes and they can win some games, but this team cannot be successful.
I don't care about the schedule because last week they made me look stupid. Because last week I was the one on here saying they're going to have a late season push because they have a lot of bad teams on their schedule. The problem is they are also a bad team. So bad teams playing bad teams, they'll get a win here or there. Yep.